Okay, good afternoon, everybody. My name is John Blake. I'm the Executive Vice President of Public Affairs for the Rangers. And I'm honored this afternoon to moderate our latest panel as we celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Rangers this year. We're talking about the 1990s this afternoon, which was a lot to pack into the 90s for everybody remembers the decade. And let me introduce our panel, our esteemed panel this afternoon. Going from my right over here, Bobby Witt, who pitched for the Rangers from 1986 to 92, and again then from 95 to 98. Second in club history in games started and strikeouts, and third in wins. Had a long career with several other teams as well, and we had to pull him out of the bullpen to announce he was traded to the A's in 1992. We'll get to that story a little bit. Then Dave Valle, who was Pudge Rodriguez's backup with the Rangers in 95 and 96, started a total of 44 games, but there were a lot of big ones in that stretch. Long-time career with the Seattle Mariners, one of the top defensive catchers in the league. Had some great battles with the Rangers during his time with the Mariners. And now an announcer doing some Ranger games this year for Bally Sports Southwest. John Burkett, right-handed pitcher. Pitched here from 96 to 99. Big factor for the Rangers down the stretch in 96, and for close to 40 years owned the only postseason win in this club's history. Berkey won 166 games in 15 seasons in his major league career. The doctor of defense, Mark McLemore, one of the first signs that Johnny Oates and Doug Melvin, first guys they brought in when they took over the club for 95, was the leadoff hitter for those good Ranger clubs in the late 90s. Mac played 19 seasons, played for the Mariners in 2001 when they won 116 games. He also played for Johnny in Baltimore before coming over to the Rangers. Kevin Elster, quite a story from the 1996 club, came to spring training as a non-roster invitee. Benji Gill, herniated disc in his back. Kevin went on to start 155 games, 24 homers, 99 RBIs. Out of the number 9 spot in the batting order, it's still the major league record for most RBIs by a number 9 hitter in an order. Was the American League Comeback Player of the Year and was a big factor for that 96 ball club. And finally, Mickey Tettleton, another sign in 1995. Was an all-star catcher before coming to the Rangers, most of his time at DH, but did play some in right field and first base for the Rangers. Had a big year again in 1996, 24 homers, 83 RBIs, and a walking machine, 92 walks that year, 90 or more walks in 7 consecutive seasons. So that's our panel, and one thing all these guys have in common is, obviously, they played for that 1996 team. But we're going to talk a little bit earlier about the early part of the 90s, and then we'll get into those great clubs of the late 90s. And we're going to start with the guy that was here for those early 1990 teams, Bobby Witt. 1990, Nolan Ryan had his 6th no-hitter, won his 300th game. But the Rangers pitcher that year was Bobby Witt. Won 16 games, 221 strikeouts. Nolan actually led the league in strikeouts that year, and I think you were second or third. But what do you remember about Nolan, I guess, as a younger pitcher, and what he meant to the ball club in those years?
I mean, for me to be able to be there during that time and watch him pitch was fantastic. I got to see 2 no-hitters, his 300th win and his 5,000 strikeouts. So it was really something. I'll never forget that. But I think that year that you're talking about, John, was by far my best year that I had, and it was kind of a competition. I mean, he kind of went out and set the bar, and I tried to follow up and do that. And I think he ended up missing a couple starts at the end. But overall, it was just it was one of those years where, every time he went out, it was something. You didn't know if you were going to see a no-hitter. You didn't know what you were going to see out of him because he had that type of stuff.
And then 1991, the 6th no-hitter. The 7th no-hitter here in Arlington. one of the more special memories of this franchise's history.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean that, and I think it was his 5,000th was here, right, in Arlington. Yeah. So I mean, that in itself. I mean, being able to see that, and like I said, every time he went out, there was a chance. You know, I mean, there was a chance of seeing him do something special. Whether it was double-digit strikeouts, whether it was a no-hitter, it was just a thrill for me to play alongside of him.
And several of you guys, Mac, Mickey, Val, faced Nolan quite a bit in that period of time. What do you remember about facing Nolan Ryan and when you knew he was going to start against the Mariners?
So I do have a little story about Nolan Ryan. So we're flying into Texas from Seattle. I was with the Seattle Mariners at the time, and our broadcaster comes all the way walking to the back where I was sitting, and he comes up to me, goes, "Hey, Val." He goes, "You know who we're facing tomorrow night?" I was like, "Yeah, Nolan." He goes, "Do you know he's never struck you out?" I was like, "Oh, great. Get back into the front of the plane and get away from me." So fast forward the next day, first time up, ground ball out. Second time up, I get to 2 strikes, and all of a sudden I remember what the guy told me, Dave Niehaus. And all of a sudden I got real defensive, and I ended up swinging at a pitch, 99 mile an hour, strike 3. So this was at the old ballpark. So y'all remember the old ballpark? So the broadcast booth is probably only 100 feet away, right? So I stopped and I looked up at him. I said, "Are you happy, Dave? Are you happy?" So I wish I could show you this because I have a picture on my phone. He ended up striking me out twice that night, by the way. The next day I get to my locker and there's a brown paper bag. So I walk up and I grab it and I open it up very slowly because, you never know. Open it slowly and there's a baseball in it. And I reach in and it says, "To Dave, gotcha, number 4,176, number 4,179. And I said, "I have it on my phone. I'll show it to anyone who'd like to see." So he was a rough at bat.
Mickey, you were with the Tigers at that time, and the Orioles, and then the Tigers as their starting catcher. What do you remember? I mean, he always pitched pretty well in Tiger Stadium.
Well, first of all, going back to Bobby, I probably wasn't real grateful at the time, but I'm really happy to be on your record-setting strikeout list. So I just remember the first time I ever faced Nolan Ryan. First of all, as a fan, I'm kind of in awe. And then the second thing I thought of was that our advanced scout was drunk because he told us that he's got just a little lazy breaking ball now. And the first one he threw me, I was like, "There's no way that's lazy." But I think more than anything, it was just the appreciation that he was 43 years old, I think, when I faced him, and he's still throwing in the mid-90s and got a great breaking ball. And just the fact that, you're facing a legend, in real time. And at the time, you're thinking about beating him, but after the fact, it's like, that's pretty cool being able to go up against him. And I'm on that strikeout list, too, a few times. So,
Mac?
Oh, I know I'm on the strikeout list quite a bit.
Every one of us.
Yeah. I think the thing I remember most about facing Nolan the first time was he threw me a fastball, and I think it was 97, 98, and he might have been 43, 44. And I said, I can't imagine what he was like in his prime at 28. That's all I thought the whole at bat, and it wasn't that long. So, I mean, that's really my biggest memory. I've heard the stories over the years. I came up with the Angels in '86, so I had a lot of veteran guys on that ball club, and they had all faced him in his prime. And I just kept hearing the stories over and over and over. We get to Texas, and of course, he's pitching. And man, it just kept running through my mind. That's one reason it was a short at bat. But just trying to imagine what that curveball and the fastball was like when he was 28, 29 instead of 43.
I actually have a little story too, even though I don't have a strikeout story, obviously. But I got called up in 1987, and the Giants it was a September call up when they expanded their rosters, and the Giants were playing the Astros in the Astrodome, and Nolan was on a 105 pitch count. And he pitched 7 innings that night, and he struck out 14.
wow.
And I was like, I never saw a performance like that before in my life. It was 14 or 15. He might have had 15 strikeouts in just 7 innings, and they took him out, and he give up like 1 hit. And but he was on a pitch count, so they had to take him out of the game.
One other thing I do remember is my good friend, which I see all the time, is Robin Ventura going out and throwing himself in a headlock.
It was one of the last memories. Nolan didn't like that pitch count very much, and when he got to Texas, no pitch count. Yeah. So those Ranger teams of the early 1990s, we had some really good offensive teams. Juan Gonzalez won the Major League Home Run title in 92-93. Julio Franco won the batting title in 1991. We were stacked offensively, and then the final piece of that offense we were supposed to get was a 40-40 man from Oakland, Jose Canseco. And I know Bobby remembers the night that we acquired him. Club was in Kansas City, and we traded Bobby, Jeff Russell, and Ruben Sierra, who was not with the club because he had the chicken pox, he was home, for Jose Canseco. They had pulled Jose out of the on-deck circle out in Oakland. And what do you remember about, I remember having to come down to the clubhouse during the game and get Toby Hara to have bring you guys in. And then we did a press conference with Russ and Bobby in the clubhouse that night, the night of the trade.
Yeah, that was my first time going through a trade. You know, any type of thing like that. I've always been a Ranger, and I can remember asking Toby before we went to that trip to Kansas City. I said, Toby, you think I'm going to get traded? He goes, nah, not right now, man. He goes, I don't think so. He goes, but just remember this. He said, it's always a good thing if somebody wants you and your name's being surfaced out there. That means that you have some life. I mean, you're still going to continue to play. It's when they stop talking about you is when you have to worry. And then sure enough, we got on the plane the next day and I got traded. But the game had started. I can't remember what inning it was, but Russ was down in the bullpen and I was down there at the end of the dugout. And Toby, as soon as he said, hey, come here, I got to talk to you. I go, well, I know I'm not going in a pinch run, so I guess it's my time. So yeah, I mean, that was, just to go through that the first time as a player was it was different, especially with the Rangers being the only team I've been with. But it worked out pretty well. We went over there and they were in first place, and I got to be part of a little playoff run there, so it was fun.
And then, the Rangers in 1993 had a really bad first half, played pretty well in the second half, finished second to the White Sox. That was the year on the same road trip where the ball hit Canseco in the head, bounced over the fence in Cleveland for a home run, and he basically tore the nerve in his elbow, throwing like 200 pitches in the bullpen in Boston before Kevin Kennedy brought him into the game. And then the second half, he was out, and we had the best record in the league, so I don't know what that says. And then, of course, we get to 1994, and not a year I think most of us in baseball want to remember, except for we moved into the new ballpark, the ballpark in Arlington. And you guys, I just wanted to get your impressions, you guys that had played in both ballparks. You played in Arlington Stadium where it was hot as an oven, that long walk from the visiting clubhouse to the dugout, which was the hotel was actually closer to the clubhouse than that walk. What do you remember about the two ballparks, Val?
I remember the old ballpark was just always musty smelling. That walk from that clubhouse where it was freezing, then you go outside and it's 100 degrees, and just the changes of the temperatures. First time we ever saw teams wearing shorts, I think it was Bobby Valentine kind of instituted, hey, it's hot. Why are we wearing pants in 100-degree heat while we're taking batting practice? That was no, and as a catcher, and I'm sure Mickey experienced the same thing, the backdrop for a catcher, like watching the pitcher release the baseball, you had seats out there. It was so difficult to see the baseball. I'm catching guys like Randy Johnson throwing 100. It was a rough day at the office.
I remember the game where Johnson struck out 18 in September. Were you behind the plate that day?
Not that day. That's why he struck out 18.
Yeah. Mickey, what was it like to catch in that ballpark?
It was hot. I don't remember catching any guys that had 18 strikeouts. We didn't have those type of arms in Detroit. Actually, I didn't catch many pitches in Detroit. But it was, I always thought, first thing I always thought of was the field itself, and even both fields were just immaculate to play on. I thought they were the best grass fields that I'd ever seen to play on. But it was just, it was quite a difference when you left there and then you walked into the ballpark here. Just the whole situation with the clubhouse and the atmosphere, and it was just, it was interesting. The other ballpark was interesting because it was a long walk, and if you went under the stands, you were walking in the dirt. So it was quite an upgrade moving to the ballpark in Arlington.
And it was, for us who had worked in both ballparks, it was like you were pitching yourself. You were actually finally in a major league ballpark. Our offices were not in Arlington Stadium. They were in an office building about a mile down the road. So if I forgot anything before a game, I used to have to drive back to my office to get it. It was a real pain. And just even having offices in the building. But I just remember that first stretch in April and May and everything. We were drawing 40,000 a game. Kenny Rogers pitches his no-hitter in July, and a week later, the season comes to a grinding halt with the strike, and the season's basically over at that point. The Rangers were in first place. They were 10 games under 500, if you remember. And we thought, okay, we might actually get our first division title. Well, then MLB says, no, those records don't count. So we were still looking for that elusive first playoff appearance. So then we have a big change. Kevin Kennedy and Tom Grieve are out as manager and general manager. Ownership hires Doug Melvin, been with the Orioles, assistant GM, and the first move he made was hiring Johnny Oates as the manager. I remember Doug saying, I need someone, in the clubhouse that I know can run things down there because I have so much to do to try to get this club on the right foot. And the rules were a little bit different, and the ownership, MLB imposed a new set of rules for the off season. The first thing Doug did was trade Jose Canseco to Boston for Otis Nixon. And then one of the second trades he made under one set of rules was we traded for John Burkett from San Francisco for Rich Aurelia and Desi Wilson. And Berkey was with us during the strike. And then we get to spring training and we non-tender him when the rules reverted back to what they were. What do you remember about that whole thing?
How do you remember all that? Is what I'm like.
I remember we made a big deal after we traded for you.
Yeah, it was a mess. I just remember, getting traded, and then just the whole implementation of the rules, that the owners put on the players. And next thing I knew, I was out there in the free agent world, and Bobby was out there too, and we ended up going to Florida together, and that's when the first time I met him. But yeah, the game was a real mess at that time, for sure.
It was just,
as far as the business part of it goes, and then and the fans were annoyed, understandably so. Missing out on the World Series and the playoffs, and the whole back end of the season, which is the most fun part of the season. People invested their money to watch baseball the first 4 months of that season, and then you don't get to watch the end of the movie. It was a bad situation.
But Kevin Elster was doing something a little different in 1994. He was appearing in the movie Little Big League as Pat Corning, the shortstop, and there were cameos in there by several Rangers. Pudge was in the movie, Dean Palmer, Rafael Palmeiro, and so was Mickey Tettleton. So just tell us a little bit about how that came about and everything.
So I was injured, so I couldn't play. So I was actually in spring training with the Dodgers, and my arm just wasn't ready. So there was a Hollywood agent that was kind of reading the newspaper and saw my plight, and he said, "There's a movie coming up called Little Big League, and I want you to go read for it." So I went and read for it, and I got the part. So here I am, and I think I'm a Hollywood actor now, so I go out and do the movie. But these guys come in, I see Mickey, and I see Pudge, and I see these guys all they do their cameos, and so I got to, and then we got to play together here in '96, and so that was just.
You had a speaking role.
Oh yeah, I told you I thought I was an actor. I don't know, but anyway, I got back to my real job in '96 here, and that was like the best year of our lives, huh, guys?
Did they just fly you guys in, Mickey, for like one day to do your?
He was there 10 hours.
10 hours.
I think Pudge was there one day. Everybody was in for one day.
It was all done at the Metrodome,
It was
right?
all done at the Metrodome. We also shot in St. Paul, but these guys shot at the Metrodome.
Did you let them come to your trailer?
No. My trailer's off limits.
I was actually catching, because we finished the season in Minnesota. So our game ended, and it was a sellout crowd like last day, Fan Appreciation Day. We left the field, and then you guys came over to get some of those shots with the full crowd.
The season shots when we had the full stadium. You were there that day. I didn't know that. So I didn't know you guys then.
So back to baseball. So 1995, we signed Mac before the rule, under the old rules. The strike ends, we sign Mickey. You signed before the strike. Yeah, so we signed you, and we signed Mac, and then we signed Mickey afterwards. And Johnny Oates was the manager, and you had played for Johnny in Baltimore. Mickey, he'd been a coach, I believe, in Baltimore. He was first base coach when you played there. And then one of the first guys, and in your case, Mac, that Johnny wanted some veteran players. What do you remember about all of that? How you came to sign with the Rangers? And
Well, actually, I was actually going to go back to Baltimore till the strike. I had a deal on the table with Baltimore, and so I loved Baltimore. It was great. We opened Camden Yards there, so that was fun playing in front of a crowd that was, standing room only every night up above the bullpen out in left center field. So that was fun. So I really thought I was going back there. Strike happens. That deal kind of flew away, and heard Johnny and Doug got the job here. I said, okay, that might be interesting. Still thinking I'm probably going to go back to Baltimore anyway. And then I get a phone call from Doug, and then Johnny, and all I said was okay. I didn't know for how long. I didn't know how much. I just knew I wanted to play for Johnny. Having played for him for 3 years in Baltimore, he was really responsible for the second half of my career, I'll say. He gave me that opportunity to go back out there and play every day, no matter what I did. So he gave me that opportunity to become an everyday player again. So that was really good. So when he said, hey, I want you to come to Texas, he didn't tell me why, and I have an interesting story about that. It was a Benji Gill kind of thing. Benji was our young shortstop. I'm playing second. I was calling the plays, so if a runner was stealing, I'd say you cover or I'll cover. So I gave the cover to Benji. Pudge comes up, fires, right to Otis Nixon in center field because Benji didn't move. So I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, okay, all right. Johnny's gonna get all over Benji when we get in the dugout. No, he jumped down my shirt. And I was not good, I'm still not good at people raising their voice to me. So I didn't talk to Johnny for 2 weeks, literally 2 weeks. And I walked by his office one day and he came out, and Johnny had a bad back. And he came and jumped on my back. I still didn't say anything. I just stopped, and he whispered in my ear, it's your turn. And I was like, oh, God. Then I knew what he meant. Like you were talking about, he wanted leaders. That's what he had in Baltimore. We had Rick Sutcliffe. Cal was the guy, obviously, in Baltimore. But once he said that to me, I was like, because I had typically been the youngest player on every team that I played on. And so coming here, and Johnny wanted me to kind of, take that role, which I don't really think anybody needed, because we had a bunch of veteran players on our team. So everybody knew what they needed to do. So that was really interesting for me. So that's one of the things I'll remember most about Johnny.
how about you, Mickey? You signed with us. You went through the whole off season, kind of unknowing what to do, and then we signed you. I think like 2 days after it's. I remember Doug signed a guy every day, and you were in April there. What do you remember? And why you wanted Johnny's influence in your deal?
Well, I got signed. Bobby and I were actually in Homestead, Florida. They had a free agent type tryout camp down there, and Bobby, I believe, was one of the first guys signed down of there, and I was about a week later. But
Yeah, we called it Camp Homeless.
yeah, that's basically what it.
The strike just finished up, and we had nowhere to go, and we were all free agents, and that was a place for us to go, yeah.
So, I mean, it was great at the time because it gave us a chance to go work out somewhere. But when I got released from Oakland and I went to Baltimore, I was with Johnny for about a month in AAA. He was a manager at Rochester. And then I got called up the next year. He got brought up, and just knowing him and knowing the type of person that he was, the type of attitude he had, I couldn't wait to get here. I thought it was a great situation, and then obviously once I got here, it was even better than I thought.
Did you guys, and Val, we'll get to you in a minute, did you guys, 95 Rangers, you had Juan, you had Pudge, you had Rusty Greer, you had Will Clark, pretty good nucleus, Dean Palmer, pretty good nucleus of players. Did you saw, and the team finished 74-70. We had 10-game losing streak. I do remember that, and we went to Yankee Stadium, finally broke it in Baltimore. Did you see signs that year that this was starting to turn? I mean, you guys that were there in 95, did you see that this could be something special, or how'd you see that?
The way I saw it was I thought we were a pretty good team, and we needed, we had some missing pieces. And if we were able to get those pieces going into next year, then we'd have a chance to at least win the division and not really know how far we could go. But we were just a few pieces short. I felt good about who we had, the guys that we had, and it was really our first time playing together. It was really easy because we'd all played against each other for years. So I knew how deadly this guy was, and that guy, and this one, and that one over there too. I hadn't played against Shug here. I call him Shug. I'll explain that later. So yeah, I thought we had a really good chance if we got some of those missing pieces. And fortunately, we were able to do that.
How about you, Val? What did you think of that 95 club?
You just look at the roster. There was so much talent there. Pudge and Juan were kind of coming into their own, but you can't win with just two guys, right, carrying the load. So what I thought was brilliant by Doug was just bringing in the veteran guys, bringing in both of these guys, bringing in Burkett in the middle of the season for the stretch run. I mean, adding those pieces to the nucleus, that's what is gonna bring a championship team. But the thing I loved about our team in '96 was the personalities, the characters, the way Ellie and I were talking a little bit earlier, talking about how much we had fun together. I mean, we truly, we went out to eat together, all of us. You don't see that, not before, not after. I know I never really experienced that, where 20 guys are going to a restaurant, and when we hit Chicago, we're all going, boom.
We also hung out in the clubhouse afterwards. Most teams, most guys, they split, they go home. We'd sit in our lockers, with our uniforms on for hour, 2 hours after the game, and just talk baseball, talk about what happened during the game, have a couple drinks, hang out. That's what was different about this team.
I remember meeting in the hotel room, and we go to 302, and we just and there'd be some beers there and stuff. We just all hang out and and just BS and whatever. I mean, it was a great team. I mean, when I came to that team in '96. We played. I pitched the last game in Toronto on a getaway day. It was my first game. You're probably going to ask me later on about that. I don't know, but the plane flight. I'm going to skip ahead and go to the plane flight, because the plane flight after the game, getaway days for this team was unbelievable. If we went on getaway day, the plane flight was just out of control. Cigars, beer, whiskey. It was a good time.
I still feel bad for the flight attendants. Yeah. I mean, there'd be 10 guys smoking cigars on a plane. Yeah. Think about that. In this enclosed capsule, it was like...
Oh, it was a cloud back there.
Well, we'll talk a little bit, but I want to start at the beginning of the season with Kevin. So you come to spring training, Benji Gill was pretty much set as the shortstop. And you come to spring training with no expectations, really. But how did that all come down for you?
The very first game of spring training, he gets hurt, and I think we were on the road somewhere, and I went in, I played, and I got 3 hits right off the bat, and his back was hurt, and his back was hurt the next day. I was in there the next day, and next thing I know, it's October, right? He never came back. Really, the rest is history. I had the best season of my life. These guys were fantastic to play for, and me and Mark Anyway, it was such a great team. Like these guys, we already talked about it. The chemistry on this team. Listen, I played on the '86 Mets team, the legendary, World Championship team with a bunch of great players. But no team was like this team. This was the best team that.
And Johnny, I thought was really good at. I mean, he knew the veteran guys he had on the team, and I think he just, ran everything through them, and then they kind of communicated through the team. And I mean, that was one of the great things about him is he just let everybody play, and he ran the team from.
I got to tell you guys the story why I call him Suge. So our first day in spring training, shortstop, second baseman. Okay, I want to see what he's doing and how he does things, and he needs to feel me out. First ground ball, kind of toward the bag a little bit. He comes over and does this, and I was like, "What was that? Does he always do that?" Next one. For those of you that don't know, when you catch a ground ball and you're going to try and turn a double play, you either catch it like this and throw it, or you catch it and flip it. The ball didn't stay in his glove more than 1/10 of a second. It was, and so he just kept doing it. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. And I was like, this could be good. This could be fun. And from that point on, I just called him Sugar. So I shortened it to Sugar because it was just so sweet. And I think we led the league in double plays. If not, we were second. Yeah. Yeah. So that was just lovely. It was like the ball wouldn't even hit to him. It was just kind of hit and just somebody blew it over to me at second.
We definitely were the best combination that I've ever played with. The best second baseman I ever played with. God, that was a fun year.
From a pitching perspective, I mean, the ball, it was just automatic, I mean, our defense all the way around was good, but I mean, you guys in the middle were just, it was fun to watch. It was very fun to watch. Ellie's thing, Ellie's quick. The first time I saw it too, I was like, what the heck is that? But I mean, never missed a ball.
It was right here every time. I was like, and he's 30 feet over there, right there every time. Perfect.
Thanks, buddy.
And that team started 7-0. We swept the Red Sox. We started 7-0 and had a pretty good lead. We got to August, had a little bit of a downturn in Detroit, and we get to Toronto. And we had just acquired you. You were going to pitch on that Sunday, but on that Friday, we were in Toronto, and Dave asked Johnny if he can talk to the team. So why don't you tell us a little bit about how that came down?
You came in after the meeting, right? Yeah. So what happened was, as he mentioned, I played 44 games in 2 years. So I never played.
Started. You did play some.
I played
late.
a little bit.
Well, I'm going to interrupt you real quick. So I was packing my stuff on Thursday night. Might have been Friday night, and that was the Gil Heredia game. You guys were in Detroit, right? He gave
Yes.
up a home run,
Yes.
right? And then you guys went to Toronto, and then you might have lost the first game there, and that's when you got to the meeting.
So we were in Detroit, and we blew a lot of games that year. We should have kind of ran away with the division, but I don't know how many blown saves we had, close to 30. 25. Yeah, I mean, imagine that if we saved half of those. Yeah. So the team was kind of sputtering, and again, I'm spectating, watching, and giving my starting pitchers shoulder rubs the next day. They would always come sit right in front of me. I'd work on them. So I just saw like the team kind of unraveled. So I'm in Detroit. Anyone been to the old Detroit Tiger Stadium? So the dugout, the bullpens, the bullpens were like this little hole in the ground, literally. And I was in it, and boom, the home run goes, and we're trying to get off the field. So by the time I got all my stuff, I crawl out of this hole, I get into the locker room, and it was like crazy. Johnny Oates, who pretty much never lost his cool, had just flipped the food table over. Guys were yelling at each other. And I was just like, man, what's going on here? So we kind of get through, we shower, we get on the plane, we go to Toronto, and I'm on the plane, and Dennis Cook was sitting right in front of me. And I was like, Cookie, I feel like I got something to say to the team. And he goes, Val, you guys remember Cookie? Val, you got something to say? You say it to the team. You've earned it, brother. You earned it. So the next day, so I went in and went to talk to Johnny. And I said, Johnny, I feel like I want to adjust the team if it's okay with you. He's like, Val, you tell us what time and we'll be out of here. And I was like, no. I want you in the room with us. And I want the coaches in the room, and I want the trainers in the room, and I want the traveling secretaries in the room. I said, everybody who is a Texas Ranger needs to be in that room. So I went in, I mentioned to Will, just to give him a heads up, because he was the sheriff of the locker room. And he's like, okay, Val, okay. So, and I just kind of shared from my heart about what I was seeing, what we were doing, and I just wanted to hear from all the guys in there as things were feeling like they were unraveling, are you in? We got 6 weeks to go. Can I have your word that you will do everything in your ability to win for the next 6 weeks? And then you go do what you want. But I need you for the next 6 weeks. And I started off with Johnny. I said, Johnny, I need to hear this from you. I need you to verbalize your commitment. So Johnny stood up and we went around. Every single player got their verbal commitment. Because there is something when you verbalize a commitment, not just say, because now you're speaking to your teammates. The responsibility is there. I'm committing to you for 6 weeks to do everything in my capabilities to make it happen.
Okay, I'm sorry. I got to cut you off here because he's downplaying this. He's really downplaying this. That's not all that he did. So yes, he wanted the verbal commitment from us, and this is how he got that verbal commitment. Mickey, are you with me? Yes, sir. Suge, are you with me? Mac, are you with me? Burkett, are you with me?
I wasn't there.
Val, are you with me? Bobby, you with me? Let's go. I'll tell you what, when I hear that, what time's game time tonight? I can go play right now. That is the best speech, pep talk, whatever you want to call it, that I've ever heard. And I've been in a bunch of them, unfortunately. But that one, my goodness, I believe we did. That was unbelievable. But I can't believe you downplayed it like that.
Just so you know, I played 13 years in the major leagues, 20 professionally. That moment was the highlight of my career, by far and away. Because I just felt like I was there for that reason, for that night, for that team.
So we went on a pretty good roll after that. The club had a 9-game lead in mid-September, but things weren't over yet. And the Rangers, who had never won a division title, we go to Seattle late in the season, last road trip. We get swept there and then lose a brutal game on Friday night in Anaheim. And our lead is down to 1 game. We've lost 8 games in the lead. And a very quiet clubhouse after that game. What do you guys remember? And then coming out on Saturday and Sunday, Burkett and Ken Hill won 2 games, put it back on track. And we would come home and clinch against the Angels in rather bizarre circumstances, which we'll get to in a minute. But what do you remember about that lead now down from 8 to 1 game?
I remember going to Seattle, and we had 4 games there, and I remember thinking, we're not going to win any of these games. That was the feeling. That was our feeling. We're not going to win one of these games, right? Didn't it feel like anyway? So yeah, that place, we called it the House of Pain for a reason. We said we just want to get out of town, get down to Anaheim, get some wins in Anaheim. We had a big lead in that first game in Anaheim, I think, right? And and we gave that up, and Seattle won that night, and we're thinking it's over. We're in trouble. We're in trouble now. And then we won the next 2 games, and there was a sense of relief. And we came home, and I think we won the thing. We didn't even win the game that night.
No, we went 15 innings. We won during the middle of the game.
That's right. We won during the middle of the game. Yeah.
But was there any? Did you guys feel? What did you feel, Mac, at that point? I remember it being real quiet. Johnny didn't really say a whole lot. What do you remember about that?
I remember.
Jared Anderson was double in the left center gap, right?
I don't remember. But I think, what I remember most about it is I don't think we were too worried about not winning the division. I felt that we were probably going to get caught and it was just going to go down to the last week of the season. We just had to start playing well. We had plenty of time left. But fortunately, we still had that 1-game lead. And then these 2 guys came out and did their thing, and that just kept us going. But I don't think I was ever worried about not winning the division for the first time here. That was not something I was too concerned about, honestly. I think Will probably said it best. Probably, I think, right after the All-Star break, you know, because media was talking about, hey, well, they've never made it. You know, they always fail in the second half. They fall off, tail off. And Will just got up one day and said, "Wasn't none of us here all those years. It doesn't matter. It's not us. It's a new team." And that was it. That was it. I think that's probably.
That was a pretty good impression, too.
Thank you. I worked on that. Yeah, that was probably. It didn't seem as big at the time because it was, you know, July, but as we got into August and September, that just kept, you know, running through, I think, a lot of guys' minds.
And then, as we were talking about, the Rangers clinch on I think it was a Friday night. We clinched in the middle of the game. The scoreboard, I think it was Seattle, right? Because we were playing the Angels. Seattle lost at Oakland in the middle of the game. And it was a kind of a bizarre feeling with the crowd and everything, knowing these guys had won. They were certainly ready to celebrate in the clubhouse. And our game went 15 innings. It went to like 12:30, and we lost that game. But how did y'all? And you were all still playing, I think. You guys were out. I mean, at that point. So what do you remember about that? Because the celebration went till.
I remember Whataburger was still open at like 5 in the morning.
We had a day game the next day.
Yes, we did. Yes, we had a day game, and Kirk Stillwell, I think, played that.
Some of us didn't go home, I don't think.
Right. Yeah.
The best part of that, Johnny came up to me after before the celebration was over, in the middle of it, because he was heading home. He goes, "Do you want to play tomorrow?" Because we had Kevin Brown, and I was like, "No, I'm good." He said, "All right, don't worry about it. You have fun then tonight."
I remember they said Dean Palmer slept in his uniform and spikes, right? He had his spikes on.
Spikes were going up the stairs. He had his full uniform on. No joke.
But that was, again, I think in Rangers history, that was certainly for the first 40 years or so, that was a huge moment for us. And we get to play the Yankees in the ALDS, and Burkett pitches a complete game in Game 1 in New York. And we thought, hey, this might be. What do you remember about that?
I don't remember anything about it. No, I remember, first of all, it was against David Cone, right? And so you feel like a big underdog. I also didn't feel like I really deserved to be pitching that game. I mean, we had 4 guys that won 15 games, Bobby being one of them, Kenny Hill, Darren Oliver, Roger Pavlik. How many gross he win? He won quite a few. Yeah, he was up there. But anyway, I just got there in August, so it was kind of a weird feeling to be, pitching Game 1. But I was, I was willing to take the responsibility. I know these guys would too, but I was like, all right, give me the ball, let's go. But Yankee Stadium, I'd never been to Yankee Stadium before, and I was a baseball fan, so that was kind of cool, to step on that field. I had to go out early and go out to Monument Park and kind of take all that in first, and then get focused on the game. And I got off to a shaky start. Dean Palmer made a great play down the third base line. I remember, I think it was second and third, nobody out, or first and second, nobody out in the first inning, and that was a huge, huge, huge play. I think we gave up 1 run in the first, and then our offense started, getting the cone. Juan hit 2 home runs, and I got in a little rhythm, and guys were making plays, and it was just, just a fun team effort, that I'll never forget.
And if you remember, the Rangers had a lead in Game 2, lost on a walk-off at Yankee Stadium. Had a lead in Game 3 in the 9th inning. Darren Oliver pitched a great game, and then Bobby started Game 4, and I think we had a lead in that game too. Did you guys look at that as something that you should have won that year? You guys were. What was your feeling at the end of that series?
If we got by the Yankees, we'd win the whole thing. I really did, and we had the lead, like you said, in every one of those games. We stopped scoring after like the 6th inning, right, David? We would score early, and we had the lead, and we just kind of like we got out bullpenned,
Well, this was pre-Mariano Rivera being the closer. He was actually the setup man, and John Wetland was the closer then. Yeah, and so then the next year we ended up signing John Wetland, and Mariano Rivera becomes Mariano Rivera. But he was obviously unbelievable as a setup man, and so we were definitely playing a 7-inning game with them, you know, and it made it really tough. 6 or 7 inning. I mean, he was pitching 2 innings, right? He was pitching 6th and 7th a lot of times.
I thought after when we won that first game, I was like, okay, we got them. I mean, we went into New York, we steal a game. You know, we're going to come home in a nice situation. Yeah, game 2. And
I think for the season too, we were 6-2 against them.
yeah, we played them well. Yeah, we played them well all year long.
All the teams that made the playoffs that year played well.
The whole
Yeah.
East. We had winning records against Boston, Toronto. So it was, for me, I remember I had played a bunch of games as we all guys in the American League in Yankee Stadium. And when we got introduced, it was a completely different Yankee Stadium. Like those monuments came to life. Yeah. And I just remember standing next to Dino when they introduced the lineups, and I actually yelled at him. I was like, is this not effing cool? Because it was so loud. And then it was just as loud when we got back here and played the first game in Texas. But I thought for sure after that first night, I was like, this is going to be cool, man. Who are we playing in the next round? Right. And especially with the way that we had played against them in the regular season.
So the Rangers, 97, we had a lot of injuries. Mickey had a knee injury, had to retire actually in the middle of the season. Will was hurt, you were hurt. You only played about 86 games that year. Kind of retool in 98, 99, had 2 really good years. And we scored a total of 2 runs in 6 postseason games against the Yankees in those 2 years. And I guess, Mac, you were the only one still left here for the lineup. And we just couldn't get by the Yankees. I think 99, we thought we had a really good chance. 98, they were very good. They won 114. But 99 was really a disappointment.
Yeah, I think it was all a disappointment. The Yankees had a way of starting to play well, and it just seemed as though they were getting tuned up for the postseason in the second half of the year. They just started playing well every year after the All-Star break, July, August, September, October rolls around, and they're ready to go. We played them well every one of those years throughout the course of the season, but when we got to the playoffs, it seemed like they were a different team. They outpitched us, meaning we didn't hit. Juan and Pudge are the only 2 guys that really did any damage. The crowd, I don't think that was a factor. Hey, they just stepped up. They did. Our guys pitched well. We just didn't score any runs at all. At all. If it wasn't for Juan and Pudge, we wouldn't have won the 1 game that we did.
So I appreciate everybody being here today. I want to wrap this up. I just want to ask each guy, because I think it's important. You're looking at 6 guys who were part of the first Texas Rangers team that went to postseason, and which is very significant. So just starting with Mickey, what does that mean to you, real quickly? We'll just go down the line here. Being on that first Rangers team that did kind of capture Red October, the whole thing in 1996.
Well, it's huge because they can never take that away from us. There'll never be another first. And we were all part of that. And I would go back to the locker room. I had never been a part of a team where 25 guys got along so good. And I think that's where, for me, that team started. We got along so well, and even the meeting, and stuff, nobody was going to get offended when somebody got yelled at or stuff. We just had a veteran, even our young players were veteran guys, Rusty and Pudge, but we just had a bunch of guys that were determined. They worked their tail ends off, and it was a blast to be around. And even today, seeing these guys, I think you can still feel the admiration that everybody had for one another.
Kevin?
Yeah, it was just a special year. Like I mentioned earlier, I played on a World Championship team in New York, and this was far more special than that. It was just being a part of the first, like you said, the very first winning team, team to win a division. God, it was special. In these players that I played with, the best teammates I've ever had. So yeah, it was very, very special.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I've been on some really good teams in my career. The Seattle team, I won 116 games. That was an awful lot of fun. But man, being on this first team that gets postseason here, how the fans were behind us. But there were a lot of naysayers along the way, and most of them were behind the camera, media. Okay, I'm part of that now. But that was a huge thing, being able to prove them wrong. And I think we all knew that we had an opportunity to win the division. And don't know how deep we were going to get into postseason, but I think everybody knew that, and we felt that, and that's what we worked at every single day we came to the ballpark. I know one of the things that Johnny did was, we didn't have to hit on the field every day. And that was because we had veteran players. Everybody knew what they needed to do to be ready by 7 o'clock. And that was a huge thing. That got us through the heat. But just everybody looking out for one another, taking care of each other, at home, on the road, wherever. That's the only team that's ever done that with me.
Burkett?
For me, it happened so quick. I got there in August, like we talked about, and I didn't even know that the Rangers hadn't been in the postseason. And I didn't know they'd been around for 25 years, which they weren't. I found out that they were the Washington Senators, and it was the same franchise. So I really didn't even know what was going on. And then, but you know what? I grew up in Pittsburgh. The Pirates win World Series. They haven't done it in a long time, but they won a couple World Series, and so as a fan, I got to experience that. And to me, I thought about that whenever we were getting toward the end. You feel for the fans, and you want them to have that celebration, and for them to feel, a victory. So it was fun to be able to bring that here.
And he got there in August, but he was a superstar for 2 months. And I had the pleasure of catching his very first game with the Texas Rangers in Toronto. I believe it was a shutout, wasn't it? Mm-hmm. Must have been all about those fingers, huh?
And I thought that was going to come up, but it was like an out-of-body experience for me. I'm telling you, I'd never had a catcher be on the same page. And he'd never caught me before. We had a little meeting before the game, and I never pitched a game like that before, where I just kept going like this. Yep. I just kept shaking my head. Yes, go on. But go ahead. Continue. But I wanted to tell everybody about that because he was amazing. I think you caught the Anaheim game too, right?
I did.
Yeah,
I
right.
did. Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
For me, my 2 years in Texas were the highlight of my professional baseball career. It's the reason why 2 of my children live here, because of those memories of that '96 team. My son, who would be out on the field every single day shagging, and we had a little routine. He would go and meet me in the bullpen. The groundskeepers had a bullpen out in right field, and there was a hidden tunnel that you can get through from the tunnel here, right, to get to that bullpen. So he would meet me, I tell him, at 5 o'clock, 5th inning, meet me out there with 2 popsicles. This is a true story. Every night. Because I never played, remember. So,
Unless I pitched.
that's right. So I would meet him in the bullpen, and all the other guys were up top. The old bullpen is up top. I'd meet him there. We'd sit there and eat popsicles together. Once we were done, I said, all right, my man, I'll see you after the game. And I'd go up to the bullpen, and he'd go back down, out through the tunnel. So having memories like that and then winning on top of it just made everything so special. So,
Bob, you were here long before everybody else. You'd experienced the lapse of no postseason. What was it like to finally win as a Ranger?
Well, kind of like what Ellie said. I was fortunate my last year in 2001 to be part of the Diamondbacks win the World Series, and that was a good team, a lot of great guys. But to be able to start here and then have that season in '96, there was nothing like that. The team itself, every single guy in that team had the same goal. We won as a team. On the field and then off the field, we would win. It was just a group that you find hard now to, even when I'm talking to younger players about the game and just telling them about the clubhouses and going out after the game and just talking about baseball and what was going on and the wives. Everybody was on the same page, and it was just something that I will never forget, and I'm very fortunate to be a part of.
I want to thank everybody. I hope the 1990s were very special for the Texas Rangers. So thanks again. We'll see you next time.